So, welcome back. As you can see, I'm sitting at a table and want to just talk a little bit about proper table manners and proper etiquette. Generally speaking, when you go to a nice restaurant, your table will be set up like this. Generally speaking, your water glass will be to your left, your wine glass will be to your right. Oftentimes, if you don't order wine, the waiter will take your wine glass away. But everybody starts with the wine glass. You'll notice that the napkin is on the left, folded. Then you have your regular fork. You have your salad fork. You have your knife. The knife, the sharp end is always towards the plate. And you have your spoon. Teaspoon. Generally speaking, if you order soup, the waiter will bring a soup spoon. So if you're going to order soup instead of the salad, the waiter does not take your salad fork, but they'll bring a soup spoon when you order the soup. Also, if you order beef, generally speaking, excuse me. Generally speaking, you're going to have a butter knife here. If in fact you order a steak or beef or something that needs to be cut, they'll bring a steak knife with the steak. But generally speaking, this is how the table is set up. Oh, also, if you're in a seafood restaurant and you have a lobster or a crab fork, that would be on the very right past the spoon. So generally speaking, forks on the left, knife and spoon on the right. Generally speaking, it's a butter knife. Napkin on the thing. When I sit down, I always put my napkin on my lap first. Now, some people don't, but I think it's proper etiquette when you sit down to immediately put your napkin on your lap. First of all, it gets it out of the way of the table, and also you don't have to worry about doing it later when the waiter brings the food. So generally speaking, as soon as you sit down, you would put your napkin on your lap. Gentlemen, the way you put your napkin on your lap is you take the corner of the napkin, one fluff, and on your lap. That's generally speaking how you do it if you are a gentleman. Ladies, it's a little different for you. So you've got your napkin and it's folded. Generally speaking, ladies, you will take your napkin and unfold it onto your lap this way. Don't ask me why. That's just the way it is. So gentlemen, you don't want to give it a big fluff like that. But gentlemen, if you just take your napkin and you take the corner of your napkin and give it a little fluff and you can put it on your lap. I always put the napkin on my lap first. It's out of the way, and oftentimes, generally speaking, here's where you're going to put documents and other things on the table. Now, always, if you get a salad, always use your salad fork. Generally speaking, most people will look for their first fork and they'll use their dinner fork with their salad. Don't do it. Always make sure you use your salad fork with your salad. When you're done with your salad, I always keep my fork on the salad plate so that they can take my fork, my salad fork, away and leave me with my dinner fork. I also don't like to have dirty silverware on the table after I'm finished with it, so that's why I like to put and I always put it tines down on your plate as they take away your salad, because generally speaking, the salad is going to come on a different plate. Okay, so you've got that. So, now, generally speaking, as I said, you never want to order the most expensive thing on the menu. Take a look at what the highest ranking officer at the table is going to order. You order something in a similar price range. It doesn't have to be lower. It could be $1 or $2 higher. But you don't want to have something that's $20 higher or something like that. It's got to be within the same price range. The other thing is this. When you see rolls on the table, usually they're in a basket. I didn't have a basket, so I didn't put them on it. When you see rolls on a table, usually they're in a basket. You always pass. You take a roll and you pass left to right. Once the rolls go around, if somebody says, please pass the rolls, you never pass across the table. You always pass left to right. Same thing with the salt. The other thing is this. If someone says, please pass the salt, let's say we all just got served and someone says, please pass the salt. Don't say, sure, use it first and then pass it. Don't ever do that. You pass it, you pass salt and pepper together, you pass the salt and pepper together, and then you say, I'd like to use it after you, which means he'll pass it back, or she will pass it back. You never say, yeah, just a second, and you use it first. You always pass it, and then say, I'd like to use it when you're done. They'll pass it back to you, okay? So, generally speaking, that's good table manners. Always, 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 especially if you're in an interview or in your sales role or something like that, when you're eating, take very small bites. It's easier than to chew and swallow when someone asks you a question. Never talk with your mouth full. If someone asks you, if you're eating and you've got your mouth full and someone asks you a question, wipe your mouth, swallow, answer the question. If you take small bites, then you're not spending a minute chewing before you answer the question. You take small bites because that way you can swallow quickly, you can chew and swallow quickly, and get to the answer to the question. So you've got your napkin on your lap, you've just taken a bite, and someone asks you a question, and then answer. That way you know you don't have any food on your mouth or anything like that, and you can answer. It is critical that you take small bites. Okay, so now, a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, never, ever cut with your fork. That is not what a fork is for. You don't cut with your fork. You always cut with your knife, even if it's a potato. Even if you can cut it with a fork. Let's say you've got a carrot on your plate and it's very soft. You do not cut with your fork. You always cut with your knife. That's what it's for. Your fork is for eating. Your knife is for cutting. Now, let me explain to you. When you're going to cut something, let's take this and say that I've already eaten my salad and that's gone. So now I have my fork and my knife. And I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see. When you cut and eat, you take your knife in your right hand, you take your fork in your left hand. You cut, you put your knife down, you switch hands, and you eat. You don't cut and eat. Now, Europeans do, only they do it opposite. But Europeans will cut and eat. Generally speaking, a European, when you're in England or continental Europe, they generally speaking, if they're right-handed, will take their fork in their right hand, cut with their left, and they'll cut and eat that way. That's how Europeans do it. We are in America. In America, that's why the fork is on the left-hand side and the knife is on the right. There's a reason. You pick up, you cut, you lay the knife on the edge of the plate, you switch hands, you drop your left hand, and you eat. And you chew. Now, if someone asks you a question, you put your fork down, you wipe your mouth, you answer the question. Then when you resume eating by taking your fork in your left hand, your knife in the right hand, cutting, down, and eating. Cutting and eating. You never cut with your fork. You always cut with your knife. Even if you can cut it with your fork, you don't do it. It's not proper etiquette. The other thing is you don't scoop. You don't scoop with your fork. You don't scoop. You brush with your knife. Generally speaking, though, that'll be different. If you're going to eat peas, for instance, you have your fork in your right hands, you will scoop the peas onto your fork, and you will eat. You will scoop the peas onto your fork, and you will eat. Then when you go to cut, opposite, you cut, you put down, you eat. Then if you're going to go in to have some mashed potatoes or scoop or something like that, you scoop and you eat. When you are finished, I don't like to put my silverware on the table. I just don't. First of all, I don't like to get the tablecloth dirty, and second of all, I just don't like it. So whenever I'm not eating, I always have my silverware on my plate. Always have your silverware on your plate. If in fact you need to use the restroom or you need to excuse yourself, you simply say, you don't tell them you got to go to the bathroom. They'll figure it out. You simply stand up. You put your napkin on the chair. You never put your napkin on the table when you're leaving. When you're going to the restroom or you're called away for a phone call or you have to make a phone call or something like that. You never put, because your napkin's got food on it. You've been wiping your face with your napkin. You always put your napkin on your chair. That way it's off the table. No one has to look at it, especially if you've got a red sauce on it or something like that. Then you excuse yourself. When you come back, you pick up your napkin. I always give it a fluff. And I put it back on my chair. You don't have to give it a fluff if you don't want. You can just put it on my lap. Okay? Generally speaking, that's proper etiquette. When you are finished, you keep your spoon on the table because generally speaking, the spoon is for coffee. So you can stir your coffee or for something, maybe dessert. Generally speaking, though, if you have dessert, you're going to get your dessert fork with your dessert, generally speaking. Also, generally speaking, I don't order dessert unless the highest ranking officer at the table does. I don't like dessert anyways. It's just me. If you are the highest ranking officer at the table, you might want to order dessert to let everybody know that it's appropriate to do so. If you don't think it's appropriate to do so, if you don't order a dessert, they won't order dessert either. Watch your alcohol. That is, when you get back to your hotel room, you can drink like a fish. Just while you're at dinner, be very, very, very cognizant of your alcohol. Generally speaking, it's appropriate to have one drink and your wine. So if the waiter comes and says, and you want to have a drink, the waiter comes and says, can I get you something started? I oftentimes don't like wine. I don't drink a lot of wine. So usually I'll have a beer and then maybe another beer during dinner in place of wine. It would be appropriate for you to order a drink if, in fact, everybody else is ordering a drink. If they're not ordering a drink, it's not appropriate. But if everybody else is ordering a drink, then it's appropriate for you to order a drink and then have some wine. Oftentimes, though, some people will say, well, are we going to order wine? They would ask the highest ranking officer at the table, are we going to order wine? And if the person orders wine for the table, then you would indulge in the wine. I always ask to see if they're going to get a bottle of wine for the table, because if they are, then I don't order wine on my own. If in fact they're not going to get a bottle of wine at the table, then it's appropriate for you to order the wine, but that would be your one drink. If they're going to get wine for the table, it's appropriate for you to order a drink and then also partake in the wine. Oftentimes, I'll have just a little bit of wine, and I'll partake in my beer, and then have a little bit of wine. Just watch your alcohol. the thing about it is so many careers have been flushed because they drank too much and they lost control. So watch your alcohol. The more you do this, the more it'll come natural to you. You guys are just starting out in the business world. Always take cues from the highest ranking officer at the table, whether that be your manager, whether that be a VP, or what have you. Okay? With that being said, good luck. I hope you guys are staying safe and staying healthy.